بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولي الصالحين وأشهد أن محمدا خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. Allahumma ameen. All praise is due to Allah, the creator, cherisher, and sustainer of the universe. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his last and final messenger. May the peace, blessings, and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon him, his companions, and those who follow his path until the day of judgment. Allahumma ameen. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue our series, Striving for Excellence, looking at verses from the Qur'an, deriving lessons that are relevant to our life. Tonight, inshallah, we will be looking ahead, in a sense, that the verse we will be talking about is going to be tying this life, but really talking about the hereafter. And so the focus of tonight is the next life, the hereafter. And most of the lessons that we talked about in the past, if not all of them, if I remember correctly, related to this life and things that we do in this life and all of that. But every now and then, we do need a reminder of the hereafter. In Sura An-Nazi'at, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about circumstance that the Prophet ﷺ would face multiple times when the idolaters in Quraysh would come to him. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا. They ask you about the hour, the appointed hour. When is it going to be? When's it going to happen? And of course, Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ, فِيمَ أَنْتَ مِنْ ذِكْرَاهَا. Tell them, this is not something for me. I have no idea. It's not for me to tell you when it is, because I myself don't know. إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ مُنْتَهَاهَا. It's up to your Lord. إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُنْذِرُ مَنْ يَخْشَاهَا. Your role is to warn those who are going to fear it and prepare for it. كَأَنَّهُمْ يَوْمَ يَرَوْنَهَا لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا عَشِيَّةً أَوْ ضُحَاهَا. It's on that day when they see it, when they actually realize that the hereafter is here, it'll be as if they had stayed in this world no more than an evening or a morning. So when they were asking the Prophet ﷺ about the day of judgment and when's the hour and when is it going to happen, they weren't really asking because they're inquiring and they want to learn. And this is an experience we sometimes have, whether it's with our children who are inquisitive, but also sometimes feel that some of the things that we ask them to do or that we demand of them, for lack of a better term, they just don't make sense to them. And Quraysh looked at the Prophet ﷺ and they said, what? You're saying we're going to die and we're going to turn into dust and then we're going to be resurrected and then we're going to be held accountable and then there's hell and heaven and hellfire and all that. It just doesn't make sense. So this wasn't the questioning of someone who's coming to learn. This was the questioning of someone who's mocking the Prophet ﷺ and trying to demean the message. But why do we talk about the unseen and the hereafter? Why is it that we as believers make a big deal about this? We're living in this life, right? Right, we believe that there's a hereafter, but that should be the end of it, and case closed. But there's really a lot more to it than that. When we look at the life that we're living, it's a materialistic life. It's life of money and business and family and children and as we go through this cycle of life, we can sometimes lose focus of what the real goal is, what our purpose is, what the mission really should be all about. And Allah talks about this. زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ وَالْقَنَاطِيرِ الْمُقَنطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ وَالْخَيْلِ الْمُسَوَّمَةِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ وَالْحَرْثِ. Beautified to man has been made what? Many ornaments of this life. Women and gold, and then Allah talks about horses. At that time, you had a horse. You had a Mercedes of the time. That was the Mercedes of the time. And cattle and fertile land has been made appealing to people. ذَلِكَ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيا. And then Allah says, these are the pleasures of this life. وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ حُسْنُ الْمَآبِ. Allah has the finest destination, something that is even better. And then Allah goes to detail some of that better reward. So we live in a very materialistic life, and this materialistic life is very glittery. It is very attractive. So if we live in this life and all we focus about is how to live this life and how to focus on this life and how to succeed in this life, we can lose sight of the real goal and the real mission. And then life is short. Life is short. Just in the verse that we recited, what did they say? لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا عَشِيَّةً أَوْ ضُحَاهَا. They will feel, you live 60, 80, 100 years, and then they'll think, well, maybe I lived one evening, or maybe one morning. قَالَ كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ عَدَدَ السِّنِينَ قَالُوا لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ فَاسْأَلِ الْعَادِّينَ. On the Day of Judgment, they will be asked, how much do you think you lived in the world? After they wake up and they see, everything that is around them, they say, maybe a day or part of a day. So all of this life with everything and all the misery that we're going through and all of these things that we make a big fuss about, at the end of the day, it's going to seem like it was a day or just half a day. So it's going to be minuscule, very insignificant, not worth the whole fuss that we're making about it. So life is short. So we really need to focus on the big, the ultimate, where real retirement is going to be. The other reason we focus, or we should occasionally every now and then remind ourselves and think about the hereafter, is that we as human beings are forgetful. We're forgetful by nature. And insan, part of this word insan comes from nasiya, to forget. So the Qur'an comes with these reminders. The Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ comes with these reminders because we tend to forget. One of the companions, his name was Hanzala, he met Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And he said, I'm doomed. So Abu Bakr said, why are you doomed, Hanzala? Hanzala was one of the great companions. He said, we sit with the Prophet ﷺ, he talks to us, he reminds us of the hereafter and hellfire and paradise, and we are in remembrance, and we are soaring with our faith, and our spirits are soaring. And then we go home to our spouses and our children and our businesses and all of that. And it's almost as if we forgot that. We get so engrossed in day-to-day life, we seem to forget all of that. And Abu Bakr thought about it for a second. He said, yeah, you're right. I feel the same way. Let's go to the Prophet and ask him about this, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So they go to the Prophet ﷺ, and Hanzala said, I'm doomed, ya Rasulullah. He said, what happened, Hanzala? And he said the same thing. So the Prophet ﷺ said, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ. He said, by the one in whose hands my soul is, swearing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If your state of mind remains the same as it is in my presence, meaning if 24/7 you're at the same level as you are when you're with me, always in remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, always thinking of the hereafter, 24/7, tuning out this world, which is not realistic, then the angels will shake hands with you on this life. You'd basically be at the level of the angels, right? لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. That's the level of the angels. They are in total, complete submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have no other choice. ولكن يا حنظلة ساعة وساعة. But, oh Hanzala, there's a time for this and there's a time for that. Not meaning there's a time to goof off and disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't want any of the youngsters to misunderstand. No, he's meaning that there is a time where I am focused on my worship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is a time where I'm utilizing my life here and my utilization of the resources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me in this life, but I use it with the right intention so that it is in submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But my mind is not going to be 24/7 focused on tasbih and dhikr and prayers, and you can't do that. We wouldn't be humans, we would be angels. But we have to be able to bridge that gap, and that's why these reminders come. Another reason why we should talk about the unseen, al-ghaib, and the hereafter, is that mankind has always been intrigued by these concepts, death and the unseen and resurrection and what happens after we die. Throughout the history of man, whether they had faith or not, it was always something that kind of boggled mankind. What happens? Is it really the end, or is it the beginning of something else? And Allah answers these questions for us. So the concept of the unseen, al-ghaib, is something that's very intriguing. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it a test of faith. Believing in the ghaib, the unseen, is a test of faith. So from the very beginning of the Qur'an, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the characteristics of al-muttaqeen, the ones who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does He say? Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. The first thing, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. The first thing, before salah, before zakah, the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that they believe the unseen. They have firm faith in the unseen. And then they establish prayer and they spend. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a long verse in Surah Al-Baqarah talks about what is birr, what is kindness, what is righteousness, He says, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ, and He says what birr is not. Then He says, it is. And who are the ones who have righteousness? Those who believe in Allah and the last day, the hereafter. And the hereafter, believing in that is the epitome, is the ultimate in believing in the unseen. Because, they say seeing is believing. This is a common saying, seeing is believing. But if that is going to be true, then we wouldn't believe in Allah. Do you see your cells? We all know the cells exist, but do we see them day in and day out? Do we see the oxygen that we breathe? But we believe that it exists. So seeing is not believing. Experiencing is believing. And we experience Allah around us all the time. So the experience that we have, the majesty of Allah, the power of Allah, the mercy of Allah, the blessings of Allah are sufficient for us to know that Allah is there. So the word and the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us to believe in the unseen, to believe in the hereafter. إِنَّمَا يَعْمُرُ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, and other things. So the mosques of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be maintained and frequented by who? Those who believe in Allah, and second, the hereafter. So we believe Allah, He's unseen, but we see His effects and we see His impact in our lives and the hereafter. So we bridge this life to the next life. And the long hadith narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, when he talks about the man who came and sat with the Prophet ﷺ when he was sitting with the companions, and he started to ask him questions. One of those questions was, أخبرني عن الإيمان, inform me, what is faith? And the Prophet ﷺ responded with Arkan al-Iman, which I hope all our youngsters know, the 6 pillars of Iman, al-Iman billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi wal yawmil akhir wal qadar khayrihi wa sharrihi. So, believing in Allah and the angels and the books and the messengers and the hereafter and the preordained fate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has determined, which is qadar, both what we like and what we don't like, what is in our desire and what is against our desire. So, the unseen is a test of faith. Its knowledge is exclusive to Allah. Allah tells us the knowledge of the unseen is exclusive to Him. قُلْ لَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ الْغَيْبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. No one knows, no one has knowledge of the unseen in the heavens and the earth except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قُلْ لَا أَقُولُ لَكُمْ. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directing the Prophet ﷺ in response to all these ridiculous demands that Quraysh were making of him, bring us this and, send us this and bring down all of these things from the heaven. قُلْ لَا أَقُولُ لَكُمْ عِنْدِي خَزَائِنُ اللَّهِ وَلَا أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبِ. I'm not going to claim that I possess Allah's treasuries or I know the unseen. So even the Prophet ﷺ has no knowledge of the unseen. So all these, those who claim to have access to the unseen and to be able to deal with the jinn and on all of these kinds of things, this is not part of Islam at all. We are commanded to believe that these creation exist. We are commanded to believe the angels exist. We are commanded to believe in the hereafter. But none of this nonsense of having access and accessing them and being able to communicate with them and do all of these things. This is knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And then Allah specifies things that He alone has knowledge of. وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ. He has the keys to the unseen. لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ. No one knows them except Him. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. And certain other things. And another verse that specifies specific things that only Allah knows. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ عِلْمُ السَّاعَةِ. Allah has knowledge of the hour. وَيُنَزِّلُ الْغَيْثِ. He knows exactly where rain will fall. We get forecasts, right? But we know how forecasts are. to 80%, 90%, they come exactly the opposite. No one knows exactly but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ. He knows what are in the wombs. You say, oh, well, they have very precise ultrasounds and they have blood tests now and they can tell you it's a boy or a girl. That's not what Allah is saying. Allah is saying He knows what is in the womb, as in, is this going to be righteous or unrighteous person? Is this going to be an offspring that is going to even reach birth or not? Is this offspring going to be one that is going to serve the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? Is this going to be an offspring that is going to be a blessing to its parents, or it's going to be the exact opposite? Who knows these things but Allah? Just because technology allowed us to look and peer in and say, oh, it's a boy and a girl. Great. MashaAllah. Science has reached some levels. But Allah is telling us the true nature of this creature in the womb is only with Allah. He's the one who, how much money is this creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to make? The rizq that Allah has preordained for this creation. No one knows that except Allah. But it is preordained even before that baby is born. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا. No soul knows what it will be doing tomorrow. We won't even know if we're going to be around tomorrow. No one can claim that. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. No soul knows where it is going to die. Is it going to be here? Is it going to be abroad? Is it going to be in another country, another state? No one knows. Only Allah knows these things. So this is the unseen in general. The hereafter in particular. So when we talk about ad-dar al-akhirah, the next world or the last world, some of the scholars say the dar al-akhirah starts for each individual once he or she passes away. That's the beginning. That's ad-dar al-akhirah for each one. So this includes the period of the grave. This includes the period of the questioning in the grave. This includes the resurrection. This includes the accountability. This includes crossing the straight path. And this includes the ultimate reward and punishment. So it's a long stretch. It involves many, many things. We're not going to go into details about what happens in the grave. This is not the point. The point here is to try and get a taste for what is the hereafter. What is it all about? So that we can really be enticed to prepare for it. That's really the goal here. So the other purpose of this is that we live, again, going back to this whole materialistic world, there's a significant push against belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a significant push against belief in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and anything connected to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these issues which we may take for granted, very important for us to be on a very solid ground. So yes, we believe Allah, and yes, we believe in the hereafter, but sometimes it's very important for us to have clear proofs and evidences, because your child may be 2 or 3, 5 or 6 years old, but one day this child will be 15 and 16, and the questions that will be coming and the debates that you'll be having will be of a different nature. So you have to have a solid foundation of these basic things that you're able to discuss on a solid foundation. How do we know the hereafter exists? Well, of course, Allah tells us. But we have to understand that it goes beyond just that. Allah, for certain, He swears by the hereafter and the resurrection. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَا تَأْتِينَ السَّاعَةُ قُلْ بَلَى وَرَبِّي لَتَأْتِيَنَّكُمْ عَالِمُ الْغَيْبِ. The idolaters, they said, the hour will never come. It's never going to happen. They told the Prophet ﷺ, you're just making stories up. But Allah swore by it. He said, say to them, O Muhammad, by my Lord, the knower of the unseen, it will certainly come to you. زعم الذين كفروا أن لن يبعثوا قل بلى وربي لتبعثن ثم لتنبؤن بما علمتم وذلك على الله يسير. The disbelievers, they claimed that they're never going to be resurrected. Then Allah swears, He says, by my Lord, He's telling the Prophet ﷺ, say, by my Lord, you will surely be resurrected, then you will certainly be informed of what you have done. And this is an easy thing for Allah. When Allah swears in the Qur'an, it's not a small matter. So when Allah is swearing, this is a serious matter. He's telling us, take this seriously. You're coming back, and we're going to meet, and there's going to be a question and answer session. And you're going to have to answer for your deeds and your words in this life. So Allah swears by the hereafter and resurrection. Another clear evidence for the existence of the hereafter is the prior creation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already established. So we exist, we've already been created. The heavens and the earth have been created. So if Allah created us from nothing, and as much as science tries to prove that we came from something, as much as science tries to twist the evidence to prove that the human being came from whatever it is, I'm not going to go into the whole issue of evolution and all of that. But let's just say for the sake of argument, evolution happened, just for the sake of argument. When you go all the way back to the beginning, there were still molecules. They still have no explanation for where those molecules came from. Where did those molecules come from? Eventually, at the end of the day, they came from nothing. Al-khalqu min al-adam. And that's why the word that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used about the creation of the heavens and the earth was فَاطِرُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And linguistically, fatir means He created them from nothing. He brought them about from nothing. So, khalaqa is one thing, fatara is a different thing. They're all within the same general category. But if Allah created us from nothing, from absolute nothing, and we're here, and we're witnesses to that, then how is it difficult for Him to bring us back from our remains? Common sense says that it should be easier. If I've already produced something and I'm going to reproduce it from its remains, it should be easier. فَسَيَقُولُونَ مَن يُعِيدُنَا قُلِ الَّذِي فَطَرَكُمْ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. Look at the word, فَطَرَكُمْ, not خَلَقَكُمْ. They'll say, who's going to bring us back? The one who made you from nothing. The one who made you from nothing the first time. You were nothing. You did not exist. Allah brought you. Kun fayakun. وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا. Allah talks about the human being who argues with the prophets and argues with the message and tries to deny it and argues with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا. He argues with us, forgetting He was created, saying, who will give life to decayed bones? قَالَ مَن يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. Now He's talking about bones. So the response here is not fatara. He's talking about bones. Who's going to resurrect these bones and give life to them after they've decayed? Well, the same one who brought those bones together when they were in the womb, and from them flesh came upon them and a human being was formed. So if you were brought about from nothing, why should it be hard for decayed bones and pieces to be brought together again by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then Allah talks not just about the human, but even the creation around us. يَوْمَ نَطْوِي السَّمَاءَ كَطَيِّ السِّجِلِّ لِلْكُتُبِ. On that day we will roll up the heavens like a scroll of writing. So rolling something up, bringing it back together. Just as we produced the first creation, so shall we reproduce it. So Allah is saying it's going to be a reverse process. Just as we produced it the first time, we will reproduce it. We will bring it back together. وَيَقُولُ الْإِنسَانُ أَإِذَا مَا مِتُّ لَسَوْفَ أُخْرَجُ حَيًّا. When I die, man is arguing with himself, arguing with people, arguing with his prophet, arguing with Allah. These people have no limits. If I die, am I going to be brought back to life? أَوَلَا يَذْكُرُ الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَلَمْ يَكُ شَيْئًا. Doesn't he recall that we created him before and he was nothing? He was nothing. So Allah created us from nothing, and that's another evidence for the existence of the hereafter, a powerful support for the fact that He's going to bring us back. If He was able to create us from nothing, absolutely, He can resurrect us one more time. Another proof is the magnificent and awe-inspiring creation of Allah. Allah invites us as human beings to look around us. Look at the creation and see how magnificent this creation is. And from that, you can definitely reach one conclusion and one conclusion only. That Allah is all-powerful, but that Allah, just as He created something so powerful, He's able to create a human being that's so insignificant compared to this powerful creation. So He says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَلَمْ يَعْيَ بِخَلْقِهِنَّ بِقَادِرٍ عَلَىٰ أَن يُحْيِيَ الْمَوْتَى. He says, you look at these majestic heavens and earth and how great they are. And nothing tired him. Allah didn't get exhausted. He didn't need to rest. As some others suggest that Allah needed to rest after He created the heavens and the earth. Allah says, kun fayakun. If He created the heavens and the earth, and that didn't cost Him anything, no energy, no time. لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. He doesn't need to take a nap. He doesn't need to take a break. Isn't He able to give life to the deaf? Common sense. Yes, indeed. لخلق السماوات والأرض أكبر من خلق الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. Indeed, the creation of the heavens and the earth is greater than the creation of mankind. But most people, they don't know. They don't pay attention. قل انظروا ماذا في السماوات والأرض وما تغني الآيات والنذر عن قوم لا يؤمنون. Look, Allah is saying, look in the heavens and the earth. Look at all these signs. But what can you do to people who don't use their minds? And many other verses. قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون. If Allah gave us these blessings, vision and hearing and the heart and the ability to think and the mind, then how is it, and these are very detailed, very minute things, how is it that He can't bring us back to this life? So the majestic creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around us is clear evidence that Allah is able to bring us back. Then Allah uses also the life cycle of crops and plants in the Qur'an as further evidence to His ability to bring us back. فانظر إلى آثار رحمة الله كيف يحيي الأرض بعد موتها إن ذلك لمحيي الموتى وهو على كل شيء قدير. He says, see the impact of Allah's mercy, how He gives life to the earth after its death. Surely that same Creator can raise the dead. يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ويحيي الأرض بعد موتها وكذلك تخرجون. Allah takes it even a further step, because there will be people who will look at all these things and still deny. He gave us examples in this life of lives that were taken and then were resurrected. And they're clearly stated in the Qur'an. So we have the story of the man who was walking into a village, which many of the Mufassirin say is Uzair. And he saw this village looked like it was dilapidated. There was no life in it. It looked dead. قال أَنَّا يُحْيِي هَذِهِ اللَّهُ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا. How is Allah going to bring this dead village back to life? How can rain or anything bring it back to life? It just looks completely as if it was bulldozed. What did Allah do? فَأَمَاتَهُ اللَّهُ مِئَةَ عَامٍ ثُمَّ بَعَثَهُ. Allah took his life away for 100 years, then brought him back. قال كم لبثت. How long do you think you say? قال لبثت يوما أو بعض يوم. Again, the same answer. A day, maybe part of a day. قال بل لبثت 100 عام. You actually spent 100 years. You were dead for 100 years. And then he started to show him all the signs. Look at your donkey and look at your food and look at this and look at that. Then after he showed him all of this, قال أعلم أن الله على كل شيء قدير. Now I realize Allah is indeed capable of everything. So this was an actual human being. In this life, Allah took his life away and then brought him back. The next verse in the same surah, Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, قال رب أرني كيف تحيي الموتى. Show me. He just wanted a sign, something to comfort him. How do you bring the dead back to life? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to take a bird, slaughter the bird, dead. The bird is dead. Take a piece and scatter the pieces all over. Take these birds that you slaughtered, scatter them all over, the mountaintops. So mix the pieces of these slaughtered birds. And then he said, call them. Call the birds to you. So different types of birds. And then call them, يَأْتِينَكَ سَعْيًا. And they will come to you. So Allah brought them back to life. So living examples of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that died and were brought back to life. And then from the story of Musa alayhi salam with his people, when they challenged Musa and they wouldn't believe, وَإِذْ قُلْتُمْ يَا مُوسَى لَن نُؤْمِنَ لَكَ حَتَّى نَرَى اللَّهَ جَهْرًا. We're not going to believe and submit to you unless we see Allah face to face. A grave sin. So what did Allah say? فَأَخَذَتْكُمُ الصَّاعِقَةُ وَأَنْتُمْ تَنْظُرُونَ. You were struck by a thunderbolt, and they died basically. ثُمَّ بَعَثْنَاكُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَوْتِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Then Allah resurrected them again to give them another chance, to show them the evidence, to show them His sign, so that they may be grateful and thankful. So Allah showed examples of resurrection in this life as a prelude to His ability to resurrect us in the hereafter. And further, Allah didn't create this life in vain. We're not living here to eat and drink and procreate and make money and enjoy ourselves and try not to have a miserable life and then retire at 65 and hope we live until we're 90 and then die and hope people give us a good eulogy and then we have people have a good memory of us, and then 5-10 years no one remembers us, and that's the end of it. And if we're lucky and we've had some great impact, we might get a line or two in a book of history. That's not the purpose of life. That's not why Allah created us. أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ فَتَعَالَ اللَّهُ الْمَلِكُ الْحَقِّ. Allah says, do you think we created you in vain, that there's no purpose and you're not going to come back to us? This is glory be to Allah. This would be an abomination to claim that Allah put us on this earth just to play and to run around and to do nothing, and then there will be no consequence, no purpose to this life. Of course there's a purpose, and that purpose is that we'll be resurrected. Whoever did well will be rewarded, and whoever did not will be punished. أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ سُدًى. Does man think he's going to be left in vain, just no goal, just running around doing whatever he wants? وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاءَ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا لَاعِبِينَ. We didn't create the heavens and the earth and everything that is in between just as a game. لو أردنا أن نتخذ لهوا لاتخذناه من لدنا إن كنا فاعلين. If we wanted to make this all a game, Allah could have taken care of that on His own. He doesn't need us for a game. There's a purpose to this life. So the purpose is for us to be here in a test and then to be resurrected to get the reward or punishment for that test. And then the power and the might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is self-evident, and in and of itself should be sufficient proof that the hereafter is going to happen, the resurrection is going to happen. So Allah in Surah Al-Qiyamah towards the end, when He talks about man and his blessings upon man, He concludes the surah and He says, أَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ بِقَادِرٍ عَلَىٰ أَن يُحْيِيَ الْمَوْتَى. Isn't this majestic creator who bestowed all of these things upon man, isn't He capable of bringing the dead back to life? I mean, shouldn't it be now, after you've read all of these things and all of these characteristics of Allah and all of these things that He blessed you with, shouldn't it just be common sense that someone like this, subhanahu wa ta'ala, is able to bring you back to life? It should be a no-brainer, is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to say. وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. Then Allah talks about the hereafter, an image from the hereafter to give us a sense of the majesty and the power and the ability of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. They haven't shown Allah His proper reverence. They don't realize, man doesn't realize how powerful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. وَالْأَرْضُ جَمِيعًا قَبْضَتُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتُ مَطْوِيَّاتٌ بِيَمِينِهِ. When on the day of judgment, the entire earth will be in His grip and the heavens will be rolled up in His right hand. Just imagine. Of course, we don't imagine Allah's hand and all that, but Allah is figuratively telling us that this entire heaven, the heavens and the earth are so minuscule and insignificant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're going to be rolled up in His hand. So who are we to question Allah's ability to resurrect us and to hold us accountable, whether we submitted to Him or we denied Him subhanahu wa ta'ala? So what's the difference between the disbelievers and the believers in terms of the relationship with the hereafter? We're not talking about here what happens in the day of judgment. We know the end. But the disbelievers, of course, they doubted the resurrection. I mean, they doubted the resurrection. And Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ, وَإِن تَعْجَبْ, if you're surprised, if anything should amaze you, then it's their question. فَعَجَبٌ قَوْلُهُمْ أَإِذَا كُنَّا تُرَابًا أَإِنَّا لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. I mean, the thing that you should be amazed at is that they would question the resurrection and say, if we are reduced to dust, will we really be raised as a new creation? أولئك الذين كفروا بربهم وأولئك الأغلال في أعناقهم وأولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. Those are the ones who disbelieved in their Lord. They are the ones who are going to have shackles around their necks, and it is they who will be the residents of the fire forever. So they doubt the resurrection. It just doesn't make sense to them, in spite of the abundant evidence, not only from the Qur'an that Allah says so, but also the logical evidence that should be clear to anyone who wants to debate logically, that the only logical consequence of living in this life is being resurrected and held accountable. For the disbelievers, death is the end. So there's just a basic problem with the whole principle of the hereafter. It kind of, turns the tables upside down. Death is the end, so there's no fear of what's beyond. There's no thought of something potentially beyond. So they want to get as much out of this life as possible, as much enjoyment, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ all these things, they want to get it in this life because they're not taking into account the reward and the pleasures of the hereafter. And at the same time, there's no fear of potential punishment. So what does Allah say? كَلَّا بَلْ لَا يَخَافُونَ الْآخِرَةَ. They have no fear of the hereafter. As believers, we really, the essence of our relationship with Allah should be love, should be hope in His mercy. We should also fear His punishment, that if we have shortcomings, if we are not fulfilling our obligation to Allah. So as the scholars would say, you live in the balance between that hope and that fear. In the hope, in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His forgiveness, but also fear that I'm not fulfilling. And it's not this schizophrenic fear that you're constantly looking over your shoulders. No, this is the fear of the majesty. I know that I am dealing with the most powerful, the most majestic, the one who has the keys to everything in the heavens and the earth. You just think of it in human terms. If you're going to meet someone very important, as much as you're hopeful, you're going to meet the CEO of the company, you have an interview, and you're hopeful that you're going to get the job. At the same time, down deep, as much as confidence you have, there's fear. There's fear. I might not get the job. They might look at me the wrong way. I might not be presentable. All of these things. It's natural as a human being to have that fear. And it's the balance between that confidence and fear that makes you presentable and makes you succeed in that interview and you land the job. And that's exactly وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. That's how our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. That it's a balance between fearing His punishment, fearing the torment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for those who turn their backs against Him, but at the same time, hope in His mercy, hope in what He has promised those who submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then for the disbelievers, there's of course the unpleasant surprise that awaits them. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ حَبِطَ عَمَلُهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Whoever rejects the faith, so again, it's a test of faith, believing in the unseen and the hereafter, it's a test of faith. So whoever rejects this, their good deeds, whatever good deeds they will have, will be void in this life, and in the hereafter they will be among the losers. وَالَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَلِقَاءِ الْآخِرَةِ حَبِطَتْ أَعْمَالُهُم. The deeds of those who deny our signs and the meeting with Allah in the hereafter will be in vain. On the other hand, we have the believers. So how are the believers in their relationship with the hereafter? The focus is the real prize. This is what we should be doing in our life. And this is the purpose of this talk. Our focus should be the hereafter. When Qarun did what he did, he was a close advisor to Fir'aun, and he was boastful and he had all his money. And what did his people tell him? وَابْتَغِي فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. Seek through all the means that Allah has given you the hereafter. Your goal, your purpose, your mission, your retirement plan, your savings is in the hereafter. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Don't forget your allotted portion from this life. Don't forget what you need, your sustenance in this life. But the goal, the prize is in the hereafter. And that's why the dua of the believer is رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Oh Allah, grant us good in this world and in the hereafter. And finally, preparation. Preparation for the hereafter. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, he said, when is the hereafter? We're going back again to the initial ayah, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا. And we conclude with a hadith that's basically the same question. مَتَى السَّاعَةِ? When is the hereafter? The Prophet ﷺ said, وَمَاذَا أَعْدَدْتَ لَهَا? What have you prepared for it? The hadith goes on. He said, nothing much except that I love Allah and His Messenger. And the Prophet ﷺ said, أَنْتَ مَعَ مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. You are with whomever you love. But the key was the question of the Prophet ﷺ. What have you done to prepare for it? The key isn't, when's the exam? The key is, are you ready for the test? It doesn't matter if the test is next week or in 6 months. If I'm not studying, if I'm not getting ready, I'm not going to pass. So, mata sa'a, only Allah knows. Everyone's sa'a, as we started from the beginning, everyone's hour is in Allah's knowledge. No one knows. قُلْ لَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ الْغَيْبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Only Allah knows the unseen. But what we need to do is to prepare for that moment in whatever way we can. So we need to solidify our faith in the hereafter by having not only blind faith, we don't want to have blind faith, but also faith in these proofs and these clear evidences, also the logical evidences, so that we are able to have these kinds of discussions with others and prepare, working on preparing for the hereafter, which inshallah can be a discussion at another point. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us an understanding of His verses. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us all amongst those who are prepared for the hereafter. And when we meet Him and we are all pleased and He is pleased with us. Allahumma ameen. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فستذكرون ما أقول لكم وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد وجزاكم الله خيرا. Any questions, comments, concerns? جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم.